Call to order the April meeting of the Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation Commission. Members of the commission, welcome. Members of the public, welcome. Becky, I would ask you to note that we have a quorum. I believe we have everybody here today, don't we?
Yes, we do.
All right, we'll begin as always with the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was the February meeting. Members of the commission, you've had a chance to review those minutes. What is your pleasure?
To move approval.
I'll second.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move on to our action items today. The first request is the request of the Eckstein Cultural Arts Center for conditional use permit by way of resolution. Just by way of background, David, jump in and correct me if I misstate anything. This is really the final step in sending our recommendation, the Planning Commission's recommendation, to the full council, which has really the ultimate deciding authority in this case. In February, this commission conducted a public hearing on the Eckstein application. Everybody who wanted to speak for or against the application was given an opportunity to speak. After the public hearing was closed, the Planning Commission then had a chance to deliberate. And in fact, after those deliberations, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the conditional use to the council. Our process is set up such that we the Planning Commission, will memorialize our recommendation by way of a formal resolution that we then forward to council. Unfortunately, we were not able to finalize and to sign and to vote on that resolution at the last meeting, the March meeting, because at the very last moment we could not get a quorum. So we did not have a meeting in March and we did not vote on this resolution. That's what we're here to do tonight, is to actually vote on the resolution of recommendation, pass that on to the council for their vote tonight. I presume they'll take a vote tonight, one form or another. The heavy lifting has been done. The Planning Commission has taken its action. It's reduced to writing. But that being said, I'm happy to entertain some brief comments from anybody in the audience who wishes to address this application. Is there anybody who wishes to speak briefly on this particular item? Sir, would you come to the podium and give us your name?
Hi, my name is Ryan McElfresh. I just moved here to Glendale like 6 months ago, maybe.
Okay, welcome.
I live on Lincoln Ave, so just like a couple questions. I guess what is the reasoning behind restoring that? Like, that's the main question. Like, what's the reason behind restoring it? Like, we already have parks and like some community centers, right, in Glendale. Sorry, I just got back from the gym. So, why? Why spend the money on doing it? It seems like it's pretty dilapidated and it'll cost quite a bit of money from the village too.
Yeah,
so.
You should know this is a private enterprise. It's a nonprofit organization that's undertaking this particular effort. It's not public monies that are being spent. So the Planning Commission here was just voting to review what they presented, they meaning the Eckstein Cultural Arts Center.
Okay.
And their program, if you've read the application materials, is to have an arts center with and a community center. It is classified as a conditional use under our zoning code, so that's why it needs this formal process.
Gotcha.
But you can discuss with them their programming. It's really quite impressive, and I think you'll like it being a new resident.
Yeah, thanks. I'm ignorant to it, so I just ask the questions. If you,
No,
if you don't know
fair
the
enough.
answers, then or you don't have to know the
Fair
question,
enough.
you don't know. So.
Yeah, and there'll probably be more said about this at the council meeting tonight at 7. I'm not going to be here myself, but I'm sure there'll be a presentation on that as well.
So you said it's more like an art, like a community or like an art display?
A little of everything, as far as what I can tell.
Nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit with arts, classes of some sort, art, music classes, and so forth. So.
Okay, awesome. Well,
All
thanks.
right, very good. Thank you. Anyone else have any brief comments before we pass on this particular resolution? All right. Members of the commission, you have any discussion before I entertain a motion on the resolution of recommendation? Seeing no comments, what's your favor? What's the pleasure of this commission? Is there a motion?
I move that we vote to approve resolution 2025-01.
Okay, and that's a resolution that we will pass on to the council for their action tonight. Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, with the center. You can have a break if you like. Nothing's going to happen on this application until 7 o'clock tonight when it comes before the council. All right. Well, let's move on to our other action items today. The next is a request of Emily Sweeney for signage at 1115 Congress. Mrs. Sweeney.
Hi.
Hi. We've seen your application. You can tell us as much or as little as you like, and we'll take it from there.
So I'm just looking to put commercial signage on the front of the building, keeping with the porch renovations that we're doing. I've asked to have it off of the porch, meeting the requirements set by Village and shared with me by David. It is a wooden sign. It's not a plastic sign. It's going to be on a post. So I'm just asking to have some signage. I think you guys saw the pictures and all the documentation.
Yeah, we've seen those.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
those-
be on a post, not
No,
on, not
it's
a
a
bracket.
bracket.
It's on a bracket on
Bracket.
the porch
Yeah.
post. Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah,
Will it be lighted?
it will not.
Okay.
Yep. I move approval.
I saw all your notes about the
Appropriate.
8 foot, not, you're meeting all those requirements, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion from anyone in the audience? Members of the commission, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Moving on, second action item under new business is a request of Harry Whiting Brown for exterior alterations. Mrs. Holtz. Do you have those drawings?
I do.
Oh, I know you do. I'm asking if he does.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you guys need the paper drawings? You good?
Let's see if he has that first.
This should be where, there it is.
Does anybody on this commission want to see the paper drawings? We've all had a chance, Megan, to see these drawings, so.
Actually, I
They're
was,
just tiny.
Yeah, that's
They're
good.
pretty small.
and I
It's hard to,
actually didn't.
even on a computer, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
All right, if you could,
There we go.
just
There,
give us
thank you,
a
Mr. Davis.
summary of what you want to do, and then we'll take it from there.
So HWB would like to carry on the left side of the building where the windows have already been replaced. We'd like to replace the windows on the right side, the original structure. The windows will match what's existing. They'll be true divided light, same color, same profile, same size. None of the dimensions change. We'd like to change the front door, the entry door. Right now, it is a double door, but we need to change that to a single door with a side light to meet code requirements. Because right now, the double door doesn't have an open in swing that meets code. And then, so the only really additional change that we'd like to make to the in a roof. So to the right, where the metal roof is, that roof, we'd like to replace that with standing seam metal roof, very similar to what's there now. It just won't let all the critters in. And then, so the only change that we'd like to make though to the facade is to add awnings over the door, and then the 2 windows to the right of the door. And those will be standing seam awnings. In the email, I did send examples of those, what those will look like.
Are those mainly for rain? since
Yeah,
it's
and
on the
just
north
decor, yeah,
side?
yeah. Especially for the door, the entry door. It's to try to alleviate some of the damage to the floor that's been done.
I don't mind it.
And that's pretty much it.
Better than wood.
We'd also like to, but you can't see it on that facade, but on the side of the building by the village office, that door would also be replaced. But very similar to what's existing now.
That's just
So the one on the inset where you go in between the bank and the,
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
got it. Question, why do you want to put true divided lights in?
That was my question.
It would just match whatever's existing there. So to the left, those have already been replaced.
Simulated divided light or true divided light?
I believe they're true.
Is it a very thick divider between them?
No.
Then it's probably simulated.
Simulated.
Because insulated glass, if you have insulated glass and do true divided light, you're gonna have a massive grid work.
Yeah. All
We're
I'll tell you-
copying exactly what's there, so.
Okay, well, let's put it this way. If somebody put in true divided lights on the other side, do we want true divided lights? Do we necessarily want?
No.
You will be happier with simulated divided lights. Okay, so what we ask for is there be a wood grid on the outside or the inside, and then a divider between the panes of glass.
Right.
Or
It will.
aluminum. I think they're doing aluminum windows.
It's
Aluminum
aluminum
clad.
clad wood.
Okay, aluminum clad wood, that's fine. Yeah. And so it's aluminum on the outside, wood on the inside.
Yes.
But you will be happier. They will cost you, I mean, almost, true divided lights are now 2.5 times as expensive as simulated.
Mhm.
And
So-
they don't look as good.
Yeah.
Who's your manufacturer?
Anderson.
Good.
Okay. Okay.
You have an existing, it looks like, meter on the front between the window and the large garage door. And on the rendering, I'm just guessing it was just not included just because it's a rendering?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not moving.
All right.
I do have a question though, now that you said that. On the interior of the building is the gas meter. It's HWB's gas meter and it's the village office gas meter is located inside our building. Makes sense, right? I would like to move it outside. Would you have any problem with us moving it? It would be next to the door by the village office, so that both of those will be on the exterior, so that, you know, the village office can get to their gas when needed.
Frankly, I can hear what she
Yeah.
The village has absolutely
They're
no
proposing-
objection to that.
Proposing to move the meter outside. I would think that would be easy for access, but I don't know if that's the current meter now. They're
Yes.
Or is that where it's
Yeah.
inside?
You don't
That's
even
where
need
it's
that.
inside, so you go in that door and it's right to the left. It
Scan
used to be
right?
behind
Yeah.
this like janky door.
So I don't even know.
Sounds right, okay.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
I don't even know with the
Would-
age of that meter, if they change it out to a current meter, it's gonna be electric anyway and all Wi-Fi, I believe.
I still would like it out of the building. I
Okay.
mean,
That's
and I
for
forgot to put that
access
in
and
there,
safety
in there.
standpoint, that's-
That's fair.
Yeah.
But you're talking on that side of the building that's,
Yes.
nobody will even see it.
Well, the village will, the
Yeah, I don't
office
care
will.
about them.
I don't go outside much.
All right. Any other questions?
And in this, the doors, the carriage doors, those stay?
Those stay.
Okay.
Nothing changes on those,
Mm-hmm. And,
except we're gonna paint them.
okay, and the existing metal roof is painted silver or green or?
Now it is red.
It's Tinner's red.
It
Oh,
has
the
snow on in that
photograph
picture, but it's red.
Looks green,
It's just
okay,
a flat seam roof. And it's old.
okay, I'm just wondering about,
It's
The
it's
color
white
is
in
what
that
we
picture
see in the
because it is
rendering.
snow on it.
okay,
It's Tinner's red.
Yeah.
yeah,
It is red. Okay.
thanks. Okay,
I'd move to approve as submitted.
Are the shutters existing? I don't see a note for the shutters.
yes, they are existing.
Existing
Yes.
shutters.
And with including moving the meter outside.
Is that, do we really have anything with the utility?
Not really.
Is that our
That's gonna be
purview? I
part
don't
of
think
it.
that's our purview.
What's that?
No.
I don't know.
I don't-
have a problem with them moving the gas meter
Yeah.
at all.
I don't think that's our issue.
We've never reviewed that.
Yes.
No.
Well,
I'm sure it'll be done tastefully.
Just improve.
The utility
it's
company
on
will
the
move it
exterior,
wherever
so
they-
I think it's worth a mention.
But all new houses would have it on the exterior, and we've never talked about it.
Yeah, but it should be part of the application, right?
If it's not in our purview.
It might be,
I
because
think any
what
attachment
if
to
it
the
was
exterior
a new
is
location
within our
and they
purview.
wanted to put it somewhere
Okay.
awful, you know,
All right.
for architecture.
I move we approve with the inclusion of moving the gas meter to the east side of the building.
Second,
All right, motion second to approve. Anyone in the audience wish to address this application? Members of the commission?
I personally am not, but the HWB definitely is.
Any further discussion, members of the commission? Yes.
You did mention replacing the door adjacent to the office.
Yes.
There's an architect involved.
I am not the architect. I am acting as a general contractor. Yes. Yep.
great.
All right, motion and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Thank you, ma'am. Great. All right, moving right along. The third request under new business is the request of John Pischel. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
745 Ivy, storm windows. Thank you, sir.
Very nice windows.
I'll give you a minute to pass that down. I don't have, everyone doesn't get a color copy, sorry.
We'll share. No, these are new. These were not as part of the application package, is that right?
What's that? Yeah.
What he's just passed out?
I'm not sure.
I
The
did
number
not-
of photos.
I included existing elevations
some
and
of
then
them,
Okay, some of these are,
the
yeah.
current state.
Okay.
So
You need another?
There's specific ones that you
I didn't see that. Okay.
all right.
So you have a combination of windows, 1/1 and 6/6?
I do. So,
Uh-huh.
John Pischel, 745 Ivy Avenue. The house has 1/1s on the east, west, and south side, and then on the, the other side I didn't say. The rooms that were originally for the live-in, servants' quarters, appear to have 6/6, and the kitchen has 6/6. The rest are 1/1.
Mhm.
So,
And that is consistent with what was done historically. The 1/1s had larger pieces of glass, which were more expensive, so.
yeah,
put
it's
'em on
double
the-
glass too.
The visible
quite heavy.
elevations, yeah. And thank you so much for keeping the historic windows.
Yeah, part of this separately is just restoration. I have
Mhm.
2 sashes that are shattered. The upper sash fell, the marriage beam split. So we're having the marriage beams repaired. So we'll have the original, actually I have the original glass, and the original glass will be going back into those sashes.
Good.
Those are the bay window in the dining room is one of the windows that are currently crushed. So we're using Allied, and the contractor is Heritage Window out of Lexington, Kentucky. Currently, we have vinyl windows. The windows are 4 feet by 8 feet, so they're quite extensive, large and heavy. Actually, on Thursday, we lost 3 more of our storms blew off in the windstorm. And you can see in the photos of the existing in the bottom corners, most of the vinyl is just completely degraded, so they're probably around 50 years old. What we're putting in our historic preservation, you're actually going to have less exposed of than the vinyl. It'll be inset, so currently there's about 2 inches for the vinyl. We have fully operational upper and lower sash. The replacement storms are going to have a fixed pane above and operational below with e-glass as well. So.
Good. All right.
We've approved these same storm windows before.
Yeah,
They're very nice windows.
but
They should be.
is the.
Oh, we all know that problem.
So, will the glass, is e-glass clear?
It
It's
has,
not-
it's basically clear. There's a very, very minimal
You
tint
can only tell
that
if
you can see
have
from the
another piece
inside.
right next to it. You
Uh-huh.
can't really tell.
Okay, because we don't want tinted
No, they're
glass.
No, they're not tinted.
So, okay, all right.
But it
I-
is an additional 15% energy savings, so.
Yeah, well,
take
thank
that.
you. Thank you for this and for using Allied, and I recommend approval.
Second that.
Okay, motion is second to approve. Anyone in the audience wish to address this application? Members of the commission, further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, congratulations. Moving right along. Request of Timothy Kilgore at 200 East Sharon for porch alterations. Mr. Kilgore.
He's been out of the country.
Yeah, there you go. As you can see, there's modifications that are clouded, and it consists of, on the right side, we're looking at the front on the left elevation. We're looking from the street, Sharon Road, at the front of the house. So on the right side, you see a stair going down, that's new. That's what's being proposed. There was, if you look at reference drawings, and you need not do that right now, but reference drawings will show there was a stair there at one time. It was non-conforming with pretty much anything you could think of, in addition to being dangerous, open risers, sloping excessively. So it was demolished along with the rest of the porch when we did the previous submittal. So that porch is new. It's with matching materials to what was submitted and approved previously. That is a dark deck AZEC cellular PVC. It's distressed so that it's slip resistant, which is required, of course. And any trim work on the stair will also be PVC white, matte finish, not the shiny type. It's a cellular PVC that need not be painted, but can be because of the matte textured surface. Mild texture, you can't discriminate it. What is new to the elements of construction are the posts, simply because we have the stair, and I introduced 2 additional posts to the front elevation. You can see the 2 that are clouded. It was to break up the span. It was also in respect to the elevation of the existing house, the symmetry of the double windows below and above, and other things that relate to that pair of posts. It also has a structural purpose. PVC is a wonderful material. They would have used it in 1856 if they had it. But it doesn't have the structural, Mr. Corse would attest to this, doesn't have the structural capabilities by any means of any wood. So I wanted to do that just to have a stronger railing as well. The caps, there's post surrounds are all the PVC material. The second element is the existing concrete porch, the main entry, concrete stoop to the porch, which you can see on the left side. Since we've been there, has been exposed concrete. It's lovely, but I'd like to cover it with brick pavers. Be a vertical soldier course, long dimension vertical at the riser, and pavers flat, of course, at the treads. That's it, with some exception of miscellaneous during construction, general changes that we made that are the type of thing I would suggest that you encounter in any significant size remodel. And I just wanted to point those out to you, not hide them, or you find them and be surprised. One of those changes is movement of the downspout that was the front right corner. Moved it back to the house, so there was not such an awkward interruption of the architecture, and added a second one over on the left side, not shown in the elevation, but in the plan it shows. So improvement of the drainage of the roof and relegating them to a more of a background perimeter location. That's it, I believe.
All right, very good.
How are your posts anchored?
I'm sorry?
How are your posts anchored?
I have information here if you'd like it. They're surface applied, but with lag bolts and made for that purpose. Reinforced both the railing, the top railing, and the posts have an aluminum skeleton to them. So that gets you the structural strength that the PVC doesn't. And I have a structural engineer involved as well, but there's base plates that are hidden within the shroud of the post that have 4 anchors to solid wood construction. It's not just framing. The perimeter, at that time, not knowing if I would have posts when I did the design, and for other reasons, I have a rather substantial front edge of the porch. When we had the winds the other night, I had no concerns, even though I lost some shingles. So my point is that it's solid wood, embedment, not just going through.
Good.
Yep.
So I see on the plan, I don't see on the elevation, which is fine, the downspouts, you seem to be around on the corners, the back corner sides.
Yes, they're actually as built now. I think, no, there's no photograph in what I submitted, but yeah, in plan they're shown.
Yeah, I saw them in plan.
So to describe where they are, even though they're not shown in elevations, on the right side of the right elevation, which is the right side of the porch, it would occur just outside the stairway.
David, could you scroll up to the plan?
Along where, pardon?
Please. I was just asking David, you could just scroll up to the plan. No, you have, well, yeah. So there's one back there.
Let me rotate
Yeah,
one
right
yep.
there.
Can you rotate that,
Yeah.
David? Yep,
Yeah,
thank you.
so one right tucked around there, and then you scroll up a little, yeah, right around the side over
There you go. That
I
is
just
it.
wanna make sure that is them.
That is the current locations, yes. And in fact, the one at the corner of the house, right side, northwest, northeast corner, was the location of an existing downspout that we replaced with, will be replaced with copper full height eventually, but replaced for the porch addition with copper. As is the downspout on the left side as well.
Is there any concern or thought from either the homeowner or yourself for any railing coming off those front steps, right directly off the front door?
I've talked intimately with the homeowner. And
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
I thought you might have been.
No, I wasn't thinking, I wasn't
I thought you
familiar.
might have knowingly asked that
Sorry about
question. The existing did not have handrails, and I would claim that I'd like to essentially keep the stair as it is for good visual reasons.
What is that height from
On the side, it looks like 2.6.
We're reducing it to, yeah, I don't think I show it there.
The other side, the other elevation shows 2.6.
I'm
So
sorry.
it might, slope might be different, but I
It's
don't know.
about 32 inches, I'd say, probably from the deck to the ground.
I'm sorry. So what was the question?
Oh, I
Which-
just
which
didn't know
stair?
if you were adding them, I was just curious.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The concrete stairs, again, are existing. They actually slope from left to right excessively. Would not be in accordance with code if it was submitted today. So in doing the brick cover, I'll also make up for that to get the correct level, or close to level. 1 in 48 is the maximum slope that you would want on any walking surface. That's not
Won't that
ramp.
change your riser height from one side to the other if you do that?
They're smaller than, the concrete varied also excessively. In any run of stair, you can have a variation of no more than 3/8 of an inch, which I think is too much. At least one of the stairs was out of that guideline, not a guideline, it's code. So in doing the mortar work for the brick, we will add where necessary.
Adjust, yeah.
And it actually, not only does it equalize the riser heights, and treads as well, it will lessen the riser height by a fraction of an inch. So it's somewhere around 7 3/4 inches. Right now, they're at 8 or 8 3/8, thereabouts. Right side is more of a worker kind of stair and an opportunity, rather than rebuilding completely the front stair. I used what was there as much as possible. The right side stair, I had a little bit of latitude, so I increased the tread depth to 14 inches and reduced the riser height. I think it's 6.5, so that it's a more comfortable, easier stair to transfer.
So you have an additional step on that
Yeah,
side?
I did, yeah, correct. That's exactly right.
Tim, what evidence do you have for the stair on the side of the porch? Do you have any historic photographs?
Yes, in my submittal, I provided, as reference drawings, the previous submittal for the porch replacement. And drawing 2.0, I believe, is photograph existing, showing the area of work. And it shows the right side stair in one of the photographs.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
missed.
I have copies
that
if you'd
got
like.
included with the application that went, the actual new application that went to planning.
That-
I'm sorry for that.
May I-
Tim, you have the-
Oh,
May I bring you a set?
okay, I was just wondering how your proposed porch design relates to any historic photos that you found.
You would not give any respect to this relic, I don't think.
Okay.
So that was the existing, that exposed lumber,
Wow.
2x12, open treads, otherwise known as.
That probably
angled
wasn't,
breakers.
that probably wasn't original, though.
Current, yeah, no, definitely not. I don't think it was
Okay.
submitted.
What about this railing? Was that original or?
Definitely not original.
Okay.
But a single length, as you see, without those.
Yeah, I like it better with posts, so. Yes. That's a long span than I have
Can you see
posts.
the other stair there?
What, this?
I'm sorry, I'm
Or-
looking upside down, the concrete stair, yeah, it's not very.
No,
visible
oh, okay.
I can see that it's there,
here. You
but
should see
Okay.
it beyond the.
Well, do you need to apply the brick on the concrete to get the right riser height in relation to the deck of the porch?
Yes, well, actually, to get the tread depth
Oh.
to a correct dimension.
Uh-huh.
Right now, it's a very narrow step down, and we're increasing it to match the others. And you do that by virtue of the soldier course, the vertical brick. work.
on the riser.
Okay.
And so that we don't change it significantly, we're using, of course, a thin paver for the tread.
Okay.
It's only full brick units for the soldier course at the front nosing. And by the way, there is no nosing. It's not required for tread, it's 11 inches or more.
Anyone else see this?
Wide nosing, I mean, the overhang.
Yeah.
See, overhang, just, as you know, it just gives the benefit of being a drip edge potentially.
Sure.
So
Not as
definitely-
much a concern for a brick stair. I do have it, of course, for the window stair on the right side.
You just would hate to see your brick,
Overhang and the,
hate to see your brick freeze and thaw. So
I'm sorry.
I just hate to see your brick freeze and thaw in the water. So just regular maintenance, as you know. I think it's a great idea. Good addition.
Anything else?
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Any further questions for Mr. Kilgore? Is there a motion?
I'll move that we accept the plans as submitted.
Second?
Motion and second. Is there anyone in the audience wishes to address this application? Further discussion, members of the commission? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kilgore. All right, the last, well, one more, the next item I should say, is the request of the Village of Glendale for railings at the Veterans Memorial. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of the Village of Glendale?
No. Yes, unfortunately, he's right here, but,
Just a question,
Sir.
are these replacement for the
yes.
the poles?
Yes,
are
that
on
will
it?
be entirely removed.
Okay.
This is going, and then this will only be installed in the areas where there are stairs. So the new stone stairs that are from the sidewalk up, and then there are a few smaller sets of steps up near the top of the memorial that will get the appropriately sized
So
railing.
on all level surfaces, that
Yes.
just goes away?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So this is not going around the top of the memorial?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. This is only going as a handrail for
I got it.
stairs. Yes.
That wasn't clear to me, but
No, me either, but I move to approve it based on that.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second, or anyone in the audience wish to address this application? Further discussion, members of the commission? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, David.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
All right, next on our items for consideration is a public hearing on proposed amendment to the zoning code relating to the harboring of chickens. David, I'm gonna turn that over to you, because
Oh, thank you.
new to me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And as our zoning code requires, amendments to the zoning code can be initiated by council, planning, or a petition. This particular amendment was initiated by council following quite a bit of deliberation in the Laws and Claims Committee to address the harboring of chickens in the village. The ordinance that came out of those conversations, those meetings, is two parts. There's a section that will apply to the village's property maintenance code that actually stipulates the number of chickens, the maintenance of the coops, essentially property management style regulations to ensure that conditions that are adverse to neighbors will be remedied. The second piece is what's before planning this evening, which is yard regulations that will be inserted into our zoning code related to the harboring of chickens. And they will cover the coops and the runs that would house and contain chickens on residential properties in the village. So these regulations or these measurements came from a number of laws and claims committee meetings, and then were eventually discussed at council, and then a resolution passed and forwarding this to planning for your review.
Okay, question, about the materials, and, these would be considered accessory structures.
Correct.
Right? So within the historic district,
Mhm.
they would be reviewed because they'd be, because of the size.
If
Right.
they exceed 120 square feet, correct.
Okay, so.
And they can be up to 150.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, all right. So, I was just, had a question in my mind about the use of rigid plastic in the
Mhm.
historic district.
So the nature of that section, there are a number of chicken facilities, let's say, that have
Okay.
improper roofs, whether they be tarps or loose fitting sheets of plastic. I mean, some kind of an approach that is not a designed roof for that style of coop. I've learned quite a bit about chickens throughout this process.
Yes.
And will be pleased to report that a number of the coops, a majority of the coops that I've seen are wood or metal with, kind of a standard roof for those materials. So I don't have concerns that any coops that would be constructed from here on that are in the historic district, they may apply with a plastic roof, and they might be able to, might be required to change that. But I think that most of the existing coops in the village have a roof that is made of a different material, like wood or
Okay.
wood or metal.
All right, just as long as we have a say in the historic district.
sure.
Of the material, because rigid plastic isn't
Correct.
a material that we would want to see, so, okay, that's my only question.
I had a question. You
Mhm.
mentioned the 150 square feet. That's down in the run section?
Correct.
Is the run section that's separate than the coop section?
That's correct.
So I don't see any is it 48 square feet?
Yes.
Okay.
So the max here is 198 square feet.
Correct.
And it would have to come to us if it's more than 120 square
Correct.
feet.
Mm-hmm.
In the
Okay.
historic district.
In the historic district. Correct.
But you would have to approve it regardless.
That's correct. It would have to conform with this code and the requirements here, and then, of course, their maintenance of it would be enforced by the property maintenance code, but then it would come to planning in the historic district. That's right.
And then my other question is, 1G is a maximum height of no more than 10 feet. There is no maximum height on the run.
Runs are typically we could certainly add one. Planning could certainly add one. But as far as I've come to understand, runs are fairly standardized in their height. I don't know if there are maybe public comment that
You
could.
know somebody will do something non-standard.
I'm unfortunately very aware of that. So we
20
certainly could add a height restriction to that as well.
What is the normal height for a run?
I would say, in absence of something, maybe 6 foot is our standard fence height, our maximum fence height. I would
your predators jumping those possible.
find it correct.
Well, they have to be roofed.
It does
it's
permit
roofed.
the installation of a roof.
Does it
It's
have a
roofed.
roof?
Yes.
Yes.
They have to.
Oh, 6 foot would be good then.
All right.
As a roof.
I don't know if
Okay.
there's a gentleman from the public that, Mr. Pischel, that wants to make a comment. He was very helpful during the laws and claims meeting, so,
Okay.
I will probably defer. That's up to the chair.
Sure. Anybody's public hearing to hear the public.
It's John Pischel, 745 Ivy Avenue. So, to address the height of the run, part of this code is to address, some derelict structures, but also like safety and health. So I would say, as you consider a height restriction for a run, you want to be able to get in there and clean it, and you want to be able to move around without hitting your head. So it's an easy thing to clean. You make it easy to clean, you're going to clean it more often. You make it hard to clean, might not want to be in there and cleaning it. So I would say, if you're going to make a height restriction, please make it so that a 6 foot tall person could get in there and clean out the run.
Maybe 8.
So.
7 foot.
7.
7, would 7 be okay with you?
Just thinking of
that's
modular
fine.
heights,
Yeah.
sure, it's fine.
Yes.
Well, let's,
Mr.
but if
Kilgore.
it, but if they make it on a 2x4s, you're losing 4 inches to begin with. Let's make it, I would concur with 8. I think, yeah, I advocate.
Easier to build,
Yep.
modular, buy.
Yeah.
Is that gonna be a maximum or a required minimum? How you gonna word this?
I would say maximum.
I'd say maximum.
Maximum.
So they can make it shorter if they want to.
Wants to crawl around in there, they
Okay.
All right. Mr. Kilgore, you got a comment?
For any permanent use, there are code requirements depending on the use of the minimum heights. So that would be a
Minimum height?
consideration
For a coop or for any
for a
use?
structure which
Mhm.
person access, whether it be a doorway, stairway,
Crawl
ceiling.
space.
So that's all in the
There are
code.
exceptions to some of the standards, including sloped ceilings and
Mhm.
yeah, crawl space, on and off.
What are modern
And it's a matter of safety to the person.
ceilings and stuff?
And that's for structures to be occupied? Is that,
I don't know, I don't wanna use the word occupied.
okay. Okay.
Yes, the code will cover it.
So that you can maintain, like the crawl space has to be a certain height so that you can get in there and deal with utilities and wiring and all that stuff.
You know, I can see that in a house or a part of a house, but for something that's designed for animal use,
But you're
I-
talking person access.
Yeah.
and
He
the
did
fre-
raise a good
frequency
point,
of
though,
it
if you
is
want.
critical.
If people are gonna be cleaning this thing, you don't wanna have it be a 4 foot and they have to crawl around in there, they're not, like you said, they're not gonna do it. They're not
Maybe you
gonna-
hinge the roof, and you have a 2-foot roof. I mean, there are other ways around cleaning this chicken run. This is just the run part, right?
Mhm.
right, just the run.
I don't know. I don't know if we have enough data
We can ask the question.
to specify right now.
A minimum, yeah.
Well, are these minimum heights requirement part of the building code? We don't necessarily need to
I don't
put them
know.
in the zoning code.
I don't know if it's part of the building code. That might be
We'll have
some
to-
research
we'll
that we
look
could do.
into that. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be curious about the square footage that we're discussing as to whether or not the building code would even apply to a certain extent, but we'll look into it and present for the next meeting.
I saw a few other hands in the audience. I saw her first.
Okay. I just want to know, will previously built coops be grandfathered in?
That's a good question. Under zoning, perhaps.
So for the existing coops that are, sorry, for the coops underneath this zoning code, yes, but for coops that do not comply with the property maintenance requirements, so they are, noxious odors, or they're essentially haphazardly constructed, let's put it that way, those requirements could be enforced on existing facilities. But for new facilities, the zoning code would apply to those facilities only. They would be essentially existing non-conforming is the phrase.
So Dave, this is sort of a two-prong approach. This is the zoning part of the village's consideration of chickens, but then chapter 94 is a different set of
Yes.
ordinances that doesn't fall under zoning, so it's
That's
only
correct.
before council.
So-
What does that say generally, the chicken permit?
The number of chickens, the cleanliness of those facilities, those sorts of details are managed under that chapter 94 section. So once, assuming this is recommended to council by the planning commission, whenever that is, council will then take those sections in addition to this section and review that as a whole package, essentially, for Chicken Harbor.
Okay. Ma'am, would you mind giving your name for the record?
Brenda Daniels.
Brenda Daniels, did you get that? Okay. deck. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question on the run.
Your name first, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Rochelle Dixon, 785 Congress. Just a question on the run. I heard mention of maybe an 8-foot run. Just to be clear, then if our neighbors, which none of them do, have chickens, we could, in theory, see their run over their fence line. Would that be any concern? That would be a concern if I was a neighbor to see that chicken run. I just want to point that out if that was
Yeah,
if it's
well,
above grade.
I think that could be a concern that we have to consider because the fence, maximum height of a fence is 4 feet, 6 feet in the rear yard. So it would be, if we were to put an 8-foot run, that would be a maximum height, doesn't mean they'd have to do it, subject to the minimum, of course. But, yes, sir.
I'm another one of them parishes. 100 Washington Avenue. As a previous chicken coop cleaner, based upon the size restrictions that you're putting on this, how many chickens do you think can get in there? I mean, reasonably. So if you're going to have a size for the area, then you're going to have to restrict how many birds you can put in there. Just a consideration.
David, is that part of the other code that the council's talking about, this chapter 94?
It is.
The number of chickens?
It is. The limitation is 12.
Is there a consideration of roosters in that section?
They are prohibited.
Prohibited?
Yes,
Okay.
roosters are prohibited.
Good. Did you hear that answer, Mr. Parrish? 12 chicken, okay.
You had another question, Tom, around the bend there.
Oh, I didn't see. Somebody else have a question? I can't see everybody there.
I don't know where it was, but somewhere in that area was a crowing rooster.
I didn't hear the question.
Can you get a full reading of the code?
Can you have a full reading of the zoning code that's under consideration?
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to read it out loud, if that's your question. It's available for...
We can run a copy. It is posted on the village's website under the planning commission page as well, and copies are available in the office. I don't have a clean copy on me, or I mean, I can go make some if we'd like, but.
Well, my sense is we're not going to pass on this today.
I don't believe that.
So I would think that you can make that available. Sir, what was your name for the record?
Chris Miller.
Chris Miller, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Debbie Marsh, 1031 Morse Avenue. Once this goes into effect, do the neighbors have like a year to comply to everything? Is that how, like, do they have so much time?
Well, I think that's a question for the zone, or the chicken permit under chapter 94. It's not a part of this code as far as I can tell.
That'll be a council decision.
Oh, okay.
So that'll come, that'll come once that's taken to council.
Yes, sir.
John McCoy, 51 West Sharon. I just wanted to clarify on the hut structure where she had brought up grandfathering in. Our chicken hutch is 90 square feet. It is used for the chicken as well as the storage of their feed and access bedding, all within rodent-proof and insect-proof containers. Now, on our property, we don't have excess space. We don't have excess storage. So it's all in one. And I was kind of curious if we're going to be forced to get rid of that, or if we're going to be able to keep that. But it is better for our birds.
My sense would be it'd be grandfathered, just piggybacking on what David said earlier, because the size of the structure is regulated by zoning, and zoning is subject to grandfathering. Now, the permitting and the other provisions that aren't before us today, you'd have to ask him if there's any grandfathering. I kind of doubt it. But as far as the size of a structure, pre-existing structure, I would think that'd be grandfathered.
Yeah, the maintenance of them would not be, but my understanding is that the
So
sizes.
Just clarify, 100% understand and agree with maintaining of the structure, but the size itself is not an issue.
I would say that yes, the size of the structure should not be an issue, but we'll be reviewing that as part of the Chapter 94 section as well to verify that everything is working cohesively.
And if it's too close to the lot line, that would also have to be an issue because it's existing, right?
Correct.
Right. Anyone else? Yes.
I don't have chickens, my neighbors have chickens, so my sister has chickens. So I just want to ask one question about I understand about the structure, I understand about the roofs, I understand about you don't want rats. But was part of what they were talking about is there has to be a fence in addition to the chicken coop so that the neighbors can't see your chickens? Is like a chicken privacy fence?
The fence limit in Glendale, if we're approving 8-foot things above
For the
it,
run.
you can see the chicken stuff over the fence. Yeah,
Or
that's my
Okay,
question.
so the question is that we have to not be able to see our neighbors' chicken coops? Like people are offended by chicken coops?
No.
I think it's more like
No,
in
I think-
general, we'd love to have that.
I was
You know,
in there.
okay.
So that's addressed in 94. There are limitations on the visibility of chicken facilities.
Do we have
by-
visibility for like swing sets and things like basketball hoops and things like that?
Garages.
People are in their yard trying to have fun and enjoy their yard with what they choose to have in their yard, like that we can't look at their yard, like I don't like their deck. I mean, is that what we're talking about?
This is a no.
What's she doing?
No fun. I think, you know, I think chickens are cute. I don't mind if coyotes walk through my yard, I'm sharing the plate, but if my neighbors wanna do something and it's not toxic, you know, and I'm not breathing in poisonous fumes, I mean, let people like live, you know, that's kinda where I'm at. I just think the fence to hide the chicken coop is over the top.
There's no requirement, as 94 is written right now, that there is a fence.
Thank
Ma'am, for the record, would you give your name?
That's each of us.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Anyone else in the audience? Members of the commission, my thinking is, I'd like a chance to read this. I just got this today, so I really don't feel comfortable in passing on it. And there's some good questions and other points raised today, so we'll have as much discussion as you want to feel comfortable having, but my sense is we should pass on this till next month.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion and second to defer to the next month.
So who's gonna look into these points and rewrite this? Is
David.
that you?
David.
David?
You want to do it? You want to volunteer?
No, I did not.
All right,
Just
we
to
have a-
clarify, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to defer. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, looks like we'll see some of you next month. Next one, David. Next item is the request of, I think it's our request, isn't it?
Yes.
For
It
amendments to
is.
the historic design guidelines relating to the height of new construction in the historic district. David, would you give us a thumbnail sketch of what this is all about? And then we'll take it from there.
Yes, Ms. Zollberger brought this forward, but during a review of a proposed new home in the district, it was identified that a section of the guidelines, not the design requirements, but the guidelines section of the Green Book, as it's known, put a height restriction on new construction of 1.5 stories in the historic district. This is in conflict with our zoning code, which is 2.5 story maximum height permitted in the village. So I believe it was just a typographical error more than anything, and this would amend the guidelines again, not the requirements, but the guidelines to reflect the zoning code's height restriction.
All right, thank you. Members of the commission.
I move that we pass the proposed amendment to change it to 2.5 stories.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. So let's, I'll use my house as an example, because really my house is more than 2.5 stories, because part of the basement is exposed, because in the old days, they didn't want to dig them as deep, and they'd say dig them halfway and pile the dirt up outside and leave some of it exposed. And if you look at the houses on, some of the new houses on Troy, on South Troy, they're built in an area which was wet, so they built them up. Would we allow that in the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what you call a raised basement.
Okay.
That doesn't count.
It does.
No.
Top of the foundation.
No, I don't think it would count.
I'm just asking the
No,
question.
Is what
no.
you measure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it also refers to compatibility with adjacent structures. So if you have an area that is built that way.
So it's 2.5 stories.
It
from the
does
first
say
floor
at
floor area?
street level
Yes.
grade,
Yes.
so maybe we need to change that
Yeah,
too.
that's not.
That was my.
Above,
I
above the
wouldn't add any-
foundation?
I wouldn't add any more confusing or details like that. 2.5
Well-
story.
Period? 2.5 stories,
It
period?
is just
Or
a guide.
Just move it, like you say, you wanna go 2.5 story.
Above.
would you then include the
above
words as drafted in height at street level grade, or
No.
strike that
No,
altogether?
You don't want that.
Above foundation.
You're just get rid of it altogether. I mean, the way it's drafted now, it includes that qualifier
Just
about the
get
street
rid
level.
of it? Well, if it's in the zoning code, then we don't need it.
Right.
Yeah, stories are defined in the code somehow.
Yes.
From the foundation, yeah.
So you could have if someone wanted to build a house with 14-foot ceilings,
Three ceilings.
you could have a very large, tall building.
You could.
You could.
And
Some of
Now,
our
we may
houses
not think
may
it's
have
appropriate.
that.
If it was appropriate
We
to
have
the
some of those.
surrounding.
He has a
Well,
12-foot,
but 12
he has a 12-foot
Yeah.
But you could
floor to ceiling height.
say that my foundation's gonna go only in the ground 2 feet and the rest is above.
Mhm.
That wouldn't be appropriate.
Well,
So, your common sense rule?
I think we should strike this.
The qualifier about the street level?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we would just strike the
have
whole thing because it's in the zoning code.
Strike the whole provision.
Yeah.
The whole thing entirely.
Yeah,
These are guidelines, so if anybody was perusing when they were developing a new home design or a rebuild of a
Yeah,
tear down, for example.
I would-
It's handy to have it in there as a reference, and if it's consistent with the
Yeah.
code, then that
Well-
would be fine.
I would just say 2.5 stories, end of period.
in height,
Period.
2.5
period.
stories in height.
Okay,
2.5
Yeah,
stories
2.5
in
I
height.
move,
okay.
Well, we already had a motion, so,
Can you take comments first?
well, let me get the motion clarified first, then we'll hear comments.
2.5
Bob, you made a motion to
Yeah.
approve it as was drafted
Yeah,
here.
I don't wanna do that.
So you
It's-
wanna-
It's 2.5 stories,
Period.
and that's it.
In
So
height,
you're revising your
period.
motion
Any new
to say that.
construction shall not exceed 2.5 stories.
Period.
Height.
I will second.
Okay, now let's hear comments. Mr. Bonhouse.
Lawrence Farmhouse, Congress. First, I don't understand that there's a conflict with the existing zoning code. Under section 154-53, additional height regulations, we have permission to extend by 10 feet or another story, provided there's additional setback requirement. So under the code right now, you can go 2.5 stories. So
Correct.
there's no conflict.
We're not saying there is, we're saying this was a typo.
It's not a typo. 1.5 stories is what it should be to preserve the historic nature of the village. I've done a count, and right now, of our 62 historic buildings, 9 of them are 1 stories, 8 of them are 1.5 stories, 31 are 2 or less. There's only 1 above 3 stories, and of the 2.5 story buildings, none of them are a full 2.5 stories. They're 2 plus either a gable or a set of small windows. So the way it's written at 1.5 would keep new construction below the existing historic buildings, which is the purpose of the code, so that new construction does not overwhelm the existing historic district. The only way we can have ones taller under the code now is if they have larger setbacks, or in the case of a church or a temple or a public building, much larger setbacks to accommodate a steeple or the tower on this building. I think what was written was exactly what they intended to write. I was contacted on that when it was written. As you know, I did most of the property searches back in '76 as a law student when this went on the register, and that was one of the main concerns. At that point, there were more infill lots available than now, but one of the main concerns was that infill would not be taller than the existing historic buildings. If you make this change, considering there is also in the code the ability to add 10 more feet on, we have at least 20 buildable lots, which would end up with the tallest buildings in the village. You're not reading the whole code. It would allow for 3.5 story buildings. The tallest building now is the old Masonic Hall, which is only 3 stories, and we don't want that. This is not, it's not a misprint. It is exactly what it was supposed to be, so that infill would be below the height of
the buildings and not overwhelm them. And at this point,
So-
there are only 11 full 2.5-story buildings, and of those, only 2 of them have the whole half story. The rest of them are either dormers or slit windows with a sloped roof. They don't even look like they're 2.5. So you'd be allowing a whole new group of huge buildings to be built on the existing open lots.
But this is a guideline. The height is really determined by the zoning, correct?
That's correct.
So this is a guideline, so Larry,
Shall
why?
not exceed.
That's a 2.5 story.
Yeah, so we want people to be able to say, yeah, I can build a,
That's a 2-story with an end.
You wouldn't call it a 2.5
A
story.
2.5 would have to have dormers on it.
Would it? Okay.
So it would be, that's a 2-story with an attic.
I thought that was a 2.5.
That's what I
If
looked
it
at
has
as
a
a 2.5.
window, it doesn't have to be a dormer. If it has a
doesn't have to have
window,
dormers.
If you have a
It's
window at the end of
2.5
that.
so Larry,
stories.
is my house a 2.5-story house?
So you put dormers on it, you still, it's
Yours would,
2.5.
yours would definitely be 2.5 stories
Yeah.
with the way it's built, yes. It's a
Yeah.
very fine line, what you consider. I mean, if there's a round ventilation window, that definitely is a ventilated attic.
Yeah.
If there's full windows to let light in, then
Yeah.
you could consider it 2.5 if there is sufficient
Okay, so
height
so
in the
you
attic
wouldn't,
to use
you
it.
wouldn't
60
want that
down and around the corner.
built on, you wouldn't want my house or the equivalent of my house built on any of the infill lots?
I mean, that's a saying you 2.5 can already story do house. it.
No,
It's a
it's
1.5
probably
story
not. A
line
2-story house, yes, but when you begin to extend the height that much, considering we already allow, if they have larger lot areas and setbacks, to add 10 feet on, you could end up with 3.5-story houses being built next to your house or any of the
Only
others.
if
No,
No.
because
No.
this is only a
This-
guideline, this is not
This is
zoning.
2.5.
So this just tells people what they could do.
That's what I call
So,
2.5.
what you're saying is this should say, any new construction should not exceed 2 stories. That's what you're
2
saying.
stories would be the maximum I would think we should go to, not 2.5. That's certainly the case. But the fact that section, I just lost it here.
Larry, stop. Just, you're getting into the minutia.
Well, but it's an additional section that allows, if you have additional setback, to go
I-
10 foot taller. So
Larry,
we're getting
Larry,
very far.
this is a guideline, this is, the zoning will require it. This is just, if you're picking it up and saying, hey, I wanna build a new house in Glendale, what are the kind of general rules? And that's what this is general rules for people to look at.
No, the
The
additional. no,
the zoning is what
That
the step.
refers to above the guideline. You can go an additional 10 stories, 10 feet.
No.
So it's in
That isn't
addition
what
to
this
the
says.
guideline.
I'm not
David,
familiar with
what
this
does it
10
say?
feet.
It is above the 2.5-story maximum, which is the limit in the code, not in the guidelines.
So the code says 2.5, the zoning code says 2.5 stories.
Correct, which can be exceeded with additional setback. For the purposes of the guidelines informing planning commission's review, and like you've said, and I agree with your statement, that it is about essentially setting expectations for new
We should be
construction.
consistent with the code.
But that planning would ultimately have the ability to review it and say it's not conforming with neighboring structures because it exceeds, the height.
So
I'm
we
okay-
should-
I'm
we
okay with
shouldn't be
2.5
more-
stories
We
because
shouldn't be
the
more
zo-
restrictive than
Yes.
the code.
No.
Which is, I believe, the purpose of updating this
No.
in the
Right.
first place, is
Right.
to
No.
avoid being more restrictive than the
And
code.
we
Right.
shouldn't make it impossible to match new construction to historic construction.
Well, as I said, there's only one historic building in the whole area that is more than 2.5 stories. That is the Masonic Building on the square, and there are only 10 buildings that would be 2.5. So of the 60, 50-plus buildings are 2 or less, and 12 of them are 1 or 1.5 stories.
It depends on
Yeah,
what you
but
call
if-
2.5, because I say two stories with a gable roof with a window in it is 2.5.
Larry, what's the size of the house right out the window there?
That is
3 stories.
That is 2.5 stories. It's
Right.
2 full stories and the half above the gable that's occupied.
There's a 4th that's occupiable actually in that
Yes.
house. You can
So it's
actually
3.5
go to-
stories.
You can go to a 4th level.
I thought so.
There is a 4th level storage attic in that building,
I
yes.
think this
Larry,
is
is your
an
problem
argument
with the
for
word
storage.
shall? Would you be more comfortable if we changed that to should? And I'm saying that because almost every other guideline on this page talks about should. New buildings should be designed. Appropriate placement of new structures should resemble other structures, so on and so forth.
Well, as I think that's the real question that comes down to me as a person that's been involved here since I was in law school now half a century ago. The purpose of making this a National Historic District was, one, to make sure we didn't change our historic housing stock in any way inappropriately, and two, to protect that stock from development on the existing lots that were not occupied from inappropriate construction. Most of the should requirements are, should be matching brick, should be similar shutters, should be appropriate roofing. The shall requirements, and this was passed by the council in 2004, are requirements. And that past requirement was to say, don't go above 1.5 stories.
This is a guideline.
But if you have to, under the zoning code, if you have a big enough lot, you can add on to it an additional 10 feet. But if you don't have a big enough lot, which was exactly what we argued about some months ago, where the driveway touched one side and there was only 9.5 feet on the other, then you don't do it.
Which code is that with the 10-foot? I'm not familiar with it. Do you know the
I just
code number?
read the section number, section
Can we look at it?
154.53.
And then, is there a sub?
No, there's no sub on it. It's just a totally separate section beyond the height requirements in the zoning code. It's a separate requirement for adding. It allows church steeples on larger lots. Of course, churches have much larger lots. There has to be room to park the cars. And it allows public buildings like a school to exceed if necessary.
I'm sorry, Larry, give me that section one more time.
Yes, obviously, when you did this, you weren't looking at that section, and that's what I'm here for. It's 154.53.
154.53.
Additional height requirements. It's not the height requirement of the code. It's
Well,
the allowance.
Mr. Bonhouse, we were not looking at it because this refers to the guidelines rather than to the requirements under the zoning code. The section, and it is explained here in the code, that the guidelines are for planning's essentially information and guidance, given their name, when reviewing applications. The requirements under the code are zoning code and et cetera. The guidelines may be passed by council, but my understanding, and has been supported by the village's solicitor, that the guidelines do not themselves render a requirement, that their language may include the word shall, but they are guidelines rather than requirements under the code.
This does not say established by the zoning code. It says building heights established in the district regulations. That's all of the regulations. They were very careful what language to use here. It doesn't refer to the zoning code.
I understand the point that you're making, but for the purposes of amending the guidelines, it is simply guidelines that are being amended, not requirements.
And we want it to be consistent with the
When
code.
the guidelines say requirements, and the original ones were written with that language by the council, I would beg to differ with you. This body does not have the authority to change something passed by the council which says requirement. Only the council that did it originally does.
Well, this is, whatever action we take will be a recommendation to the council. It's not, we don't have the authority on our own to make that ultimate change. We will just be passing on a recommendation. So, and I don't know if it'll get to them this month or next month, but.
Where are we now? It'll be June.
It won't be today.
It'll be June.
And we may very well defer today. There's some ideas bouncing back and forth.
So-
I personally like to take a look at the code section that Larry referenced to see if they do play well together.
Right.
There's two
All
comments.
I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, is it is possible to do 2.5 stories now if the lot is wide enough to not have the building overwhelming the buildings next to it. It's already there in a separate section, just for that purpose.
I understand,
Yeah, but
and I
this is
want to take a
not
look at
what
that
this
code
is
section that
about.
you're referencing to see how that all plays together. Mr. Parrish, you had your hand up first, I think.
I did. I know that, like I said, as a lifelong Glendalian, the height requirements back in the day are different than the height requirements for a story, So therefore, we have houses here that do have 9, 12, 15-foot ceiling. That's all over. Would that not still be 1 story?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so therefore, it's not necessarily how many stories, but the height. Because otherwise, you have to make something so that everybody can say, okay, you can't build higher than this. I don't care whether it's 1, 2, or 3 stories. But if you go higher than this, then it doesn't fly. So I'm not really understanding what the dig is, because you can't get it through until you go before the people who will ultimately approve it.
Mr. Parrish, you're exactly right. It was written to deal in stories, but the additional part says to add 10 feet on, doing it in feet, you have to have a bigger lot, so it's not too big what's around it.
But
It
it's
was
a
written-
moot,
it was
but
written
it's a moot
correctly.
point until someone challenges it.
Well, it would have been challenged 6 months ago. A number of us are here because we were trying to build a close to 3-story house right next to smaller historic houses. And because it was in the code, it wasn't allowed.
And that goes back to
No.
those who approve that stuff.
I saw a few other hands. Mr. Kilgore?
If I may, a few points. One, the technical aspect of it. There's a dimensional, unless things have changed since I used the code. There's a dimensional height limit as well as story, so read that as well.
In the code, in the zoning code, or in the guidelines?
In the code,
Yes.
it's 30 feet or
I
something.
suggest
Yeah,
that you read
35.
closely the definition of building height relative to grade and roof, what point of the roof you refer to when you say there's a maximum 35 foot.
Yeah,
building
that's
height.
all in
Point
there.
2 is, de facto, you would be, if you enforce the guideline, which I think is a fine guideline, but I think should not be enforceable. If you do enforce it, 1.5 max, you're prescribing, forbidding the typical height of some of the basic architectural styles
Yes.
that this village is all about.
Right.
Yes.
I'd like to see some houses built appropriately with respect for the surroundings and distances from pivotal structures and other structures. I'd like to see in 150 years, in 150 years, some houses that are equivalent, not subservient and smaller than. I'd like to see some around in 150 years, even a point or place, lot where such a house disappeared. So I'd like to see it in the future. I'd like to see a 2.5-story wonderful working future. Point 3 is, if I own one of those vacant lots remaining, if you enforce, not just guidelines are great, and I abide by them generally. If you enforce a 1.5-story maximum guideline, how are you not creating a taking of value of that property? And we do not need to lose more money on that account as a village.
The only thing that says 1.5 is the guidelines.
I understand.
The
I'm talking
code
about-
does not say
understood.
1.5.
I know the difference, and I'm
Yeah,
talking about if-
and all we want to do is make the guidelines consistent with the code.
Understood, yeah.
Is there any other hands in the audience wish to speak? Ms. Dixon?
I agree with all the points Mr. Gopar put forward. I would just challenge if it was 5, 10 feet from his property line, would he have the same view as what we all went through in the past 3 years for a house? It's a good view. I understand the point, the revenue, newer homes, but unless it's on your property line, you have a very different point of view on it. We almost had a 70-foot, 18-foot, or what is it, 18 feet high, 70-foot long brick wall that was built almost 5 to 10 feet from our property line. And that guideline, support from this council, was very important on not having that go through.
Incidentally, wall had no penetration wall.
Anyone else wish to address? Members, we've heard a lot today. I'd actually like, personally, the opportunity to compare this guideline to the actually binding regulations in our zoning code, see how they play together. I certainly appreciate the concept or the principle of being consistent between the guidelines and the zoning code. And I think that's a pretty strong consideration for us tonight and next month. But I do want to see how they play together. Go ahead.
And that specific regulation he's referring to, 154.53, is subset B. Just
Yes, I've done that.
And then 154.22 refers to district height regulation, or residential height regulations specifically.
Can I make one other very brief comment here?
Sure.
The guidelines and regulations in the Green Book affect only the part of Glendale which we call the National Historic District. The zoning code affects all the rest of Glendale which isn't in the historic district, which is why the zoning code is allowing 2.5 stories in areas that aren't in the historic district. This is for the historic district only, which is why it is more restrictive. You have to remember, we have two things going on here. We have the rest of the village, and we have the historic district. In the historic district, the height should be limited to 1.5 stories, which is well above most of the historic houses on average, when you count all of them. Well, I took the time to count them today.
Well,
You're saying most of them
matter.
are one-story homes in the historic district?
If I can find a piece of paper, I'll give you the numbers.
62 pivotal buildings.
The
9
pivotal structures,
single-story
most of them are
homes.
one-story?
There are
Not true.
8 1.5. There are 31 2-story homes and only 11 2.5-story homes.
So
If
you just said that most of them are 1.5.
No, I said they're below what you're going to, which is 2.5. 59 or 48 of the historic pivotal structures of the, well, I only counted 59 of them. I didn't include the churches because obviously the steeples are taller. 48 of the 59 are 2 stories or below. Now you're allowing it to go to 2.5. There's two different things going on here. There's what we do in our historic district and what we do under the zoning code in the whole village. Certainly 2.5 is appropriate if we're building well outside the historic district. But if we're filling the infill lots in the historic district, going to 2.5, you're going to be building houses bigger than be 82% of the historic houses on the registry.
But if there are any 2.5-story buildings in the historic district, and you're saying there are 11, it is appropriate to set a maximum that matches that.
That maximum is already there. Under the additional height
Correct.
regulations, you can add 10 feet on to get to that point.
Okay, well, we're gonna have
That's why
to
it's
agree to
this
disagree.
order.
Yeah.
With all effects. You can't read just part of the code, you have to read all of it.
Let me turn it over to the discussion of the commission. Once again, I would recommend that we pass on this until next month. I'd like to look at that code section and the rest of the guidelines, quite frankly, to see how these play together. I tend to agree with Beth and Mr. Kilgore that we need some consistency between the guidelines and our zoning regulations, but I want to make sure we get it right so that this conversation isn't held every time we look at a new house. We have a motion to approve new language.
I'm willing to table that.
Okay, you have he's withdrawing his motion. I suppose the second's been withdrawn as well. Is there a motion to defer action until next month?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, we'll pick this back up next month. David, if you feel inclined to give us some additional insights, I'd appreciate it.
Gonna work on something? Yep.
All right. That concludes our action items for today. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the commission on any other item?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right.